It says we're live, so let me double check. I'm like, are we? Did I get tricked? Let's see. Why is my YouTube not loading? This is embarrassing. Oh, I think everyone can see us.
I see
Hello,
someone.
everyone.
I think we are live.
Yeah, I think we're live too. Okay, cool. We are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the live show for the November pick for the Crusty Club Book Club. Today, we are going to be talking about Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. And we have a lot to say, but before we get into that, I do want to announce the next couple of books for the book club. So for December and January, we will be reading These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong, which is a reimagining / retelling of Romeo and Juliet, and it's set in Shanghai. It's super cool. It's a fantasy. I'm really excited for that. So the live show for this will be like end of January, so look forward for that. Then in February, we will be reading Girl, Women, Other, which is a fictional novel about 12 Black British people, and we follow them over the course of different years. I'm really pumped for this because I love fiction / literary fiction. We love to see it. And then in March, we will be reading Spoiler Alert, which is a romance. And I'm really excited for this because it involves our main character who is plus size and she does cosplay. And then our love interest is an actor who writes fan fiction. I'm super pumped for this. So yes, those are the 3 books that I wanted to announce. But now I'm going to go ahead and let our lovely co-host introduce herself. And she's also going to share with us her favorite mystery / thriller that she has read recently. Oh, not you being popular.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Erin, and I am from the channel Booked and Busy. I am primarily a fantasy reader, but I read lots of romance as well. Now I'm starting to read more sci-fi, the occasional historical fiction, classic things like that. My favorite mystery that I have read, I think, still hands down, is this book called The Only Daughter by Anna Snow Extra. That is a banger, a certified hit. Okay, it's this story about this missing girl, and our main character is not the missing girl, but she pretends to be the missing girl, and what kind of happens with that. So I'm excited to discuss Gone Girl with all of you.
I can't wait to talk about this because your facial expressions have just been ending me. Okay, so I'm assuming everybody in the chat, everybody who's watching, has read the book. But if you haven't, I'm just going to really quickly give you a synopsis because the first couple minutes of this live show will be spoiler free. But Gone Girl follows our main character, Amy Dunn, who is married to a guy named Nick Dunn. And they are, at the beginning, just having a really good marriage. But then Amy goes mysteriously missing. T. And people are trying to figure out what happened to her. And as usual, the husband is the main suspect. And then we learn a lot of things throughout the book. So that's basically what the book is about. It's a super popular book. If you're as lucky as I have been, then you have not seen any spoilers for either the movie or book. But yeah, okay, that's basically the synopsis. So let's jump right into it. Let's go ahead. If you guys in the chat want to share what your ratings for the book was, like what you gave the book, what you thought about it, go ahead and start commenting that. And then I will go ahead and let Erin tell us what her initial thoughts and her rating for the book was.
For full transparency, I literally finished Gone Girl 4 minutes ago. Like, as I was getting on the stream, I sat here and listened to like the last 10 minutes of it. So my initial thoughts was that this was definitely a twist on the typical domestic thriller. The husband always done it. It was an interesting twist on that story. We have 2 extremely unlikable main characters, and at the beginning of the book, you dislike them, but for different reasons, and you dislike them for completely different reasons by the end. I think it was an interesting character study of bad people and how usually in domestic thrillers and books that center around relationships, you're always going to be rooting for one person or the other. There's a good guy and there's a bad guy. And in this story, we follow 2 bad people. but who are bad for different reasons. So I think it was interesting in that way. I particularly did not enjoy it. I did not enjoy my reading experience. I was extremely underwhelmed by the ending. It had potential because it was doing some interesting things. I liked the shift in the narrative at 50%, where you like it's first told in like diary entries, and then there's a shift in the way the story being told. I enjoy storytelling devices where we like, okay, leading up to the day that the wife goes missing, and then however many days from when she's going missing. I like that device that was used. I think it's like a 0 star for me, maybe a 1 star. Goodreads doesn't have that option, but yeah, those are my initial thoughts on Miss Gone Girl.
Yeah, so actually when I was reading it, I was like, ooh, this is going to be a favorite. I love it. And I agree with Erin that this is not the type of book to read if you enjoy reading books with characters that are likable, because both Amy and Nick are absolutely horrible people. They are not the type of people that I expect anybody to like. I feel like the entire time I was reading this book, I was like, okay, when are they going to start paying for the things they've done? Where are the consequences? Where's like what's going on here? And I had initially given it 5 stars, but then when I thought about it, it was like a 4 star, like 3.5 to 4 stars. And I feel like I'm going to settle at 4 stars because I feel like one thing that really got me with this book was Gillian's writing style, which I really, really enjoy. And going into the question I want to ask next is, have you read anything else by this author? Erin, have you read any of her other books? Or
I have not read any of her other books, but I own Dark Places, and I think I'm going to be unhauling Dark Places. Because what I've from my discussion of Gone Girl and just like seeing people, me talking about my reading of it, a lot of people say that the things that she does in this book, she does them across her writing, is just her style to have unlikable characters. You can't really root for any of them to do these things. I'm like, that's not something I particularly enjoy. And also where the mystery is like right there, but getting to the why is where the question, not the actual what. I like the what. So I think Miss Gillian might not be for me.
Yeah, I definitely. So I, first of all, want to say I agree with Lauren's comment right here that the fact that they were unlikable was the entertaining part for me. But I will say, this is also a warning to everybody in the comments as well who hasn't read anything from this author. She writes characters like she writes characters like this in all of her books. So in the one that I have read and this one, and then I've heard the same thing for all her other works. So I definitely think if the writing style and the fact that the characters are unlikable is not something you enjoy in books, you're not going to enjoy any of Gillian's writing, because I did really love Sharp Objects. That's still a 5-star read for me, but the characters are horrible. Absolutely. Like, if you think Gone Girl is bad,
and see, I'm fine with the characters being unlikable, but to a degree, they are also insufferable. And in some elements, specifically, Amy was inconsistent in the reason that she was unlikable. Like, she was this diabolical mastermind type of lady, just from what we know about how she was raised and things like that. But then when you get to later on in the story, I'm gonna say it in a way that if you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. But if you haven't read it, it's not a spoiler. The things that happen when she's in the Ozarks, that doesn't line up with this.
It doesn't line up with her character. Yeah, I think it's very interesting because her character was very like flip-flopping for me. And I actually don't know if Gone Girl was published before Sharp Objects, but I will say one thing that irritated me with Gone Girl after I finished it and thought about it was the fact that no consequences were paid at all. Whereas in Sharp Objects, from what I remember, there were consequences for behaviors that were crusty. So
nor Amy, there were no consequences at all.
No consequences.
And I'm just like, this is very white.
Ace's comment, literally. This is a warning now for anybody who has not read the book. This is your time to leave because we're going to get into the spoilers. And it's going to be a time. I haven't seen the movie, but I'm very excited to because I've heard it's better than the book. So, yeah, hello, Alana. Okay, I have more questions for Erin because I don't know why I thought that this was going to be oh, we both love the book. But then right when I started reading it, I was like, I feel like Erin's going to give this 1 star. Okay, so clearly this did not live up to your expectations of enjoyment, but did the book live up to your expectations based on the hype? Like, did you feel like the hype of the book was worth it if you think from like an objective perspective? And this is for everyone in the comments too. Did you feel like the hype kind of like you understand why people enjoy this book, whether you hate it or love it?
With on one hand, I can say I understand the hype, but also I really don't, because it was very unsatisfying. Usually for me, when I read mystery thrillers, I'm going into it with now be a slow buildup, but the ending is gonna just like, and the big thing happens very early on in the book, and the way that it's resolved is not satisfying, and so I find it hard to believe that people are satisfied by how that storyline went, because it could have went in a way that was very, very exciting, very like, but it really was kind of sappy, and like at the end we really kind of lost a lot of the momentum and things that we've gotten in that shift that made me understand the hype. So I went from a point where I was like, okay, I can kind of see what people are talking about. You know, I got to the end, I was like, what? This is y'all. So it was a mixed bag as far as the hype was concerned.
I definitely think that part of my enjoyment for the book was the fact that I didn't know what was going to happen. Like, I hadn't seen anybody, like I literally did not know what the spoiler would be. But I do think that finding out, well, since we're talking about spoilers, I'm just going to say it. I think finding out that Amy was trying to frame Nick for her murder, and that she was going to, you know, find a way to make sure that he would be blamed when she died, I thought that was like, that made me gasp. And then the baby made me gasp. And then after that, the first time when her best friend was like, Amy was pregnant. Because the whole time,
I was like, what?
Exactly. So like when we found that out, I literally was like, and I literally had to look at the audiobook because that happens like halfway. So it's like, then what's the rest of the book gonna be? So
Amy was like, listen, I know y'all thought y'all knew me, but y'all don't know me. But let's get caught up.
Yeah. Because I don't know, I just feel like Amy's character, the more I got into the book, the more I was like, I really dislike this woman. And I know there was a comment about her power being white woman tears, and I definitely agree. Like, it was too much. I thought it was a basic thriller. Yeah. Every time I see someone recommend Gone Girl, they're always saying that it's better if you've never really read thrillers. So I know, but what do you think about that, Erin? Do you think like it's probably the kind of thriller that's better if you haven't read any, or?
I don't know. I feel like it depends on the type of person you are. If you are a person that just reads books in general, you just are along for the ride, you might like it. But if you are a person who you intentionally or intentionally predict books, you won't enjoy it, I think. Yeah. Whether you read it or don't. But I feel like some people, I go into books, I'm trying to think what's going to happen. How do these things connect? Because in like a lot of fantasy, like how do these parts work together? So I'm trying to think, how do they work together to get to the end? And if your person is going to predict the things as you're reading, I think you will be able to predict a lot of the things that happen in this book, but not necessarily the ending. And I think the middle twist would have had a lot more payoff if there was another twist at the end. The end was just kind of like wah wah wah.
Yeah, it was like
I was thinking it would be like some last line that was like, and just something drastic, but there was not.
Yeah, but he literally was like, "Yeah, I'm just nice to you because you have to live with yourself every day." I was like, "That's it."
No one's ever going to love me like Amy. Yeah, no one is ever going to love you enough to fake their own death and frame you for it, sir. I don't want that type of love personally.
No, I agree. And I think it's interesting too that, so when I was reading it, I was trying to put pieces together. Like I was messaging my friend and I was telling her, like, because one thing that kept being like in my mind that I thought was going to play more into the story that didn't was when the cops kept asking Nick what size clothing Amy wears. Like I thought that was going to be like some big thing where they'd find out, oh, this isn't like he's not the one who did it. But the fact that it was literally Amy coming back that was like, oh, he didn't. I just felt like it was too easy. You know what I mean?
Also, the way that he interacted with the cops, the way that the cops interacted with him, I was like, what in the white man is this?
Yeah.
Like like even when they thought he did it, they were like, we had the smoking gun, we found the weapon, and they were just like, oh, Nick, meet us at your house so we can chat about you killing your wife. This is a homicide now.
Literally, I feel like the cops were just, I don't want to say unprofessional because that was the point when it got to Amy, you know, being like, you guys didn't do your job properly, but they didn't even ask proper questions. Like when Amy came back and they were interviewing her, like I get the situation was very, very sensitive, you know what I mean? So so they couldn't just ask her all kinds of things, which she definitely played into. You know what I mean? When she came back after killing Desi and she like told that whole story.
It just clicked in my mind because I just finished. What book this really reminds me of, but I actually think, and this is kind of executed better in that book, The Silent Patient.
Yes. The Silent Patient is the perfect execution of this. Yeah.
Which is, I don't want to spoil it for you, but if you didn't like Gone Girl, or you do like Gone Girl, I would recommend The Silent Patient. But if you didn't like Gone Girl because of the way some of the things were handled, I think you would really enjoy The Silent Patient.
I would definitely agree with that, because I think also The Silent Patient, even though the characters there are not necessarily like lovable, they're definitely a lot better to manage as you're reading. Like you don't despise them, you're curious, but you don't despise them. You know what I mean?
And I think it's harder to predict, I think. Mm-hmm. Now, when I read The Silent Patient, I hadn't read that many thrillers or mysteries, but I was more surprised by the things happening there. The reveals were more satisfying in that.
Yeah. I remember when I was reading The Silent Patient, because it was one of my first thrillers, the way I literally gasped. Like, I was there like, what? Like, I didn't see it coming at all. Like, I literally had to sit down. Like, I was at work and I was listening to it. I literally sat down.
I know I didn't hear what I think. And the reveals in that book are done very casually. It's like a one sentence, something singer. And I was like, wait, what?
You like have to go back and you're like, wait, because it's literally like, oh, I was walking down the street. And by the way, like I'm the person who did all, and you're like, what?
This is so good. No, it also has a diary element as well, and so you're not really sure how reliable things are in a diary. Which, if you read Gone Girl, you know it was all a fictional tale. So.
It's just, that book is, now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, that's definitely a book I would reread. Anyways. But okay, I agree with this comment that Nick made himself very easy to frame. He's literally a fool. Literally, like, when we found out about his affair with Andy, I was like...
But honestly, did Nick make himself easy to frame? Or if you're someone's spouse, are they inherently easy to frame? You know everything about them for the most part. Like as far as like passive, you have access to everything that they have access to. They trust you, are vulnerable around you. People as their spouse, you should know how they think, and you have the opportunity to put them in a lot of damning situations. And you get the benefit of the doubt because why would my spouse do that? And so it's like...
Exactly. And the craziest part for me, this is the only part where I literally gasped at Amy's behavior, like in her planning, was, you know, the part where Nick went to his dad's house and he couldn't get in and he ended up breaking the security thing and then he had to call them. And then the cops later on in the future were like, oh, by the way, where are you on this day? I was like, not Amy predicting exactly what this man would do.
And going to all those places and having the way he was falling in love with her again. Now I like that. The way he was literally falling in love with her again until he got to the last. He was like, hold on. This was
like something about this.
If I was to make one of those, if you like this book, you'll like this book, or if you didn't like this book, you like this book, I would definitely do Gone Girl and The Silent Patient because they are very similar. I would love to see that.
The Silent Patient has, like, Gone Girl, I highly, even if I was to recommend it to anyone, I'd be like, you really need to look up the triggers if you're somebody who really gets triggered by things. Because I honestly cannot think of a single trigger that's not in that book. Like,
I was shocked by some like sociopathic tendencies that Amy had, because I'm like, maybe I thought this was Amy snapping, but then when we find out that this is a habit that she's had, like when she casually told us that she told Desi that she'd been, sexually abused by her father to make him for her, and the way she set up the guy for dating someone else,
and her friend in high school. The fact that she literally made friends with that girl in high school, got her to dye her hair, got her to do all those pranks to her house, got her to tell her mom that she was going to get rid of Amy, and then framed her.
The girl was stupid because that doesn't even make sense. But when you heard it the first time, he was like, wow, these people are so crazy. Why would they do that to Amy? Whatever. And then when they tell the story, you're like, whoa, what is wrong with Amy?
She literally fooled me. Like, the whole time I was like, Amy, oh my God, no, not Amy, not you pushing Amy down the stairs. And then we find out Amy threw herself down the stairs. I was like, what? Are you serious? So yeah, this is definitely something recommended to people if you want, but please tell them to look up those triggers, because I did not, I kind of expected things to be very heavy based off of reading Sharp Objects, because that book, I don't know what it is about Miss Gillian Flynn, but she packs the triggers into her books. Like, I had to pause reading this book because I was like, I didn't just hear that.
Okay, I see a comment that says all he had to do was take the detective. Now, granted, if I was a murder suspect trying to solve a mystery, I don't know that I would also take the detective with me either, because I'm Black, but because they're not going to believe me. They're inherently biased against me. So I'm trying to prove innocence, and they use those same things to prove it to him. Like, no, that's how we know that you did it.
And that one cop also kept mentioning, I think it was the female cop, she kept mentioning how the other cops already had it in their minds that Nick was, guilty, so they were going to make every single thing fit into their narrative anyway. So I feel like taking the detectives along would have actually done him less justice. Like, it would have been a worse situation for him. So,
because how do you explain there being underwear in your office?
Yeah.
How do you explain not knowing about these credit cards, but then having a room full of all the items you were supposed to have purchased?
Literally, the only thing he could have explained away was the purse in that one town. Like, because why would he just toss the purse over there? It was so obvious.
The thing with his dad, I was like, she didn't even gain anything from that. Why was she whispering to the dad to keep him coming back to the house? That was so weird.
Like, I'm not gonna show this comment on the screen, but somebody just talked about the thing that Amy did with the wine bottle. Like, the wine, I was like, it's cute. That was when I knew that this book, there was no resolution that was going to be peaceful. There was nothing that was going to make me, like, in my brain feel any sort of, consequences have been paid. Absolutely not.
There are no good people in this, because even Desi, at first, when we first saw Desi, when Nick went to his house, I was like, oh, he's misunderstood. He's just that. Mm-hmm. And then when they reconnected and the way he was acting, I was like, what? Now, granted, my man, but the things that he was doing, he was trying to, keep her captive.
Keep her trapped.
Like, that's not okay either.
The way he was like, did you see the tulips that I've been growing for you? I was like, sir, how did you know
she was like, these tulips are brand new.
Like, how did you know? Like, it was weird because, and it was so crazy because some aspects of all the people that Nick was going to investigate was true, except the nerdy guy. I feel like the nerdy guy, he really just got played dirty.
When he handed her those two $20 bills, I laughed so hard. She said, I need more money. And he just said, here you go.
That made me laugh so bad because I was like, that's gonna last her one trip. It's gonna last her to the
Well, yeah,
store
she was
once.
in his house, but
Like when he gave her, honestly, when he gave her that $40, I knew that he was not gonna live. I knew he wasn't gonna live. Like you gave this woman $40 when she's trying to use you, you're not gonna make it at all. Like that was just so wild. Yeah. You know what? I did expect Desi to do this, but I didn't think he would because then the story would have just been weird, you know?
But see, I would have liked that ending more because it would have been like Nick didn't actually do it, but that she's never found out because Desi could have helped set Nick up even more. Or it's just like
That's
she
true.
faked her own death and then she was still killed by a man anyway. That would have been more interesting.
Oh, this is interesting.
I'm interested to see the movie now, just to
Same.
see.
I just even in the Discord, like in the Discord, and people have been talking about the book. Most everyone has been like, the movie is way better than the book, which I find interesting because usually people say the opposite.
The book is usually always better.
Yeah, so that's like really surprising to me. But this was so funny.
The fish scene was like like surprisingly gruesome when he was like bashing. I was like, I was eating at the time. I said, let me pause that for a second.
Like, nasty.
And I could tell, I was like, Amy, but that's what I mean. It doesn't make sense. How is she so smart that she can plan this thing for a year? She can put all these trips.
She doesn't know how to hold her money
away. She can get a car, have it sitting in the space for 4 or 5 months, but she can't even keeping her name straight. And looking at dodgy people and not showing them a big wad full of cash.
That was so dumb. Like she would literally be like, here's my $10,000 in a fanny pack. I'm like, what?
After they went fishing and he tried to swim to the money, she should have left that same day. She should have packed her up and went somewhere else that same day. And I'm like, you let them in again. And then you did it again. I'm like, you are an idiot.
Like when she let them in when she was watching that show, like she let them in when she was watching that Ellen show. Then they went back to their room and she was still like, I'm just gonna take a sleepy rest and I'll figure it out in the morning. I literally would have left right there. I would have been like, oh, I'm gonna go to the bathroom and dip.
And I'm like, you didn't need none of that stuff that you had anyway. It wasn't nothing anyway. I'm like, literally, when you got back, you should have dipped. She's like, oh, I haven't deviated from the plan, whatever. But like, literally, you could just go to another like little motel. It's not hard. But I'm like, you are getting too friendly. It didn't make sense that she was able to think her way out of that situation. But you could think of how to frame someone for murder, and then the fact that she would admit to killing herself to like give. How is that the biggest like F you to someone? I'm gonna kill myself to make sure that you suffer.
I think that's why she ended up changing her mind and she was like, yeah, I just don't want to do that. Yeah, because the whole time I was like, how is she going to make sure that he is, you know, the one who pays for this? I'm not excited to see this in the movie.
Nick is dumb. Like, even when he was getting set up, he thought he was falling in love again. And then even at the end of the book, Nick is just like, you know, I hate you. You tried to have me, you know, convicted of murder, but no one's ever going to know me the way you know me. And I'm just going to stick out. And everything that she did surprised him. So I do think Nick was an idiot. He was not a good person either. He was a philanderer, but he was still an idiot. Like, I don't think he knew what he was getting into with Miss Amy.
And I think it's interesting that in the book, we find out like literally, so Amy is an only child whose mom has had many miscarriages and she is like the miracle baby, you know what I mean? And so her parents literally treasure her and she grows up in a house where her parents are so incredibly in love with each other. And it's so interesting to me that that type of environment bred someone like Amy. You know what I mean? Because she's like amazing Amy. Everybody thinks she's gorgeous, perfect. Nick is obsessed with her corn head. I don't know what that was.
You know, it was weird at the beginning, but it made sense by the end.
It did. It did. The head thing made. That's why when I saw that beginning paragraph, I was like, this makes sense. Like I went back and looked at it, and I was like, no, this makes complete sense.
Like even Amy, the way we see Amy's parents throughout the book, the way that we Nick see their relationship, and then but it's so different from the way that Amy views her relationship with her parents in her head.
Yeah.
I'm like, which of these is the truth? Because she's like, they're not great parents. They made me like this. I'm like, these seem like very normal, well-adjusted humans.
Yeah, I think it's because she, like, when she was talking about her, because she talked about how all the siblings that had died were all named Hope. Every single one was named Hope, right? I think she mentioned that. And I think she has this resentment over the fact that her parents, like her mom, remember how her mom talked about, or how she talked about her mom celebrating and mourning the deaths of her sisters every single year.
And even as a child.
Yep. And Amy was like, I'm going to destroy it every single time. I'm not going to let her mourn. I'm not going to let her celebrate. I think she has resentment for not being the only, you know what I mean? And that fosters into all her relationships. Because then when that one guy started dating another girl, what did she do to him? When her friend started making other friends, what did she do to her? When Nick had an affair, what did she do to, you know what I mean? I just thought that was like interesting.
Even so, it's like, okay, honestly, I don't blame Nick for having an affair. Okay. And I say that because Amy says that she was pretending to be a whole different person for 2 years or however many years. And then she started to be herself or whatever version of herself she decided she really was. And then he didn't like it. I'm like, well, he's never met this person. Literally, a complete stranger is in his home. So yes, cheating is wrong, but you were pretending to be someone who you really were not. And he married a complete person that you were not. And so then you were shocked and hurt that he did not, interact well with the person that you are now. But I'm like, this was contrived. You created, what was it, the cool girl, the fun girl, think about the monkey wives and like whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like,
she created this whole narrative to serve the idea that she was the perfect woman that a man would want. And this is actually something that I wrote down that I wanted to ask you and the audience about, which is kind of unrelated to this book, but kind of related. What do you all think about, you know how people always talk about when you're dating, you always show like your best self, the self you think that person wants. Like, what do you all think about that? Because I thought it was really interesting that this book talked about that, because when I started reading it and Amy was like, oh, I don't care if my husband bails on me and goes out with his friends for drinks. I don't care if he disappears and I don't see him. I don't care if he comes home drunk. I don't care. I literally was like, oh, I would literally lose it. I would literally lose it. I was like, that couldn't be me. Remember how she was so chill about her friends' husbands like coming to dinner with them and they would make fun of them like monkey husbands or whatever. I was like, I would definitely be one of those monkey wives. Like, I would be like, where are you?
You don't have to come out with me, but if you say you're gonna do something, then I'm gonna expect you to do that thing.
That's the point. That's the point that I like was thinking about.
With the average human, I don't think people pretend more so. I think you just get, you know how when you start learning how to drive, they tell you the way that you drive during ideal weather and then the way that you drive during rain or snow, whatever, is a little bit different. And I think in dating and relationships and getting to know people, even with friendships, when you first get to know people, you kind of only see their ideal setting when they're in the right mood, when things are going well, when they're well rested, they're not sleepy, they're not hungry. When they are intending to be around people and communicate with people, you see them at their best. But the more time you spend with them, the more you get to know them, you start to see the rest of their life that isn't the best parts of themselves, the best parts of their life. And you see how they handle things and deal with things when they are tired or hungry or stressed. And like, you just start to see more of them. But I don't think the ideal is not them, but it's just them if you want to date with somebody, that's maybe 2 or 3 hours. That's just 2 or 3 hours where they have very intense thoughts of, I'm going to be doing this thing for this time, and everything else is in the background, and not all the things in their life. They have set aside this time for you. And when you see the ideal is not the reality.
And I also think too that when you're first dating someone, I have this, I don't know if it's a philosophy, but I have this like thing that I kind of function under, and it's like if I'm dating someone, I want to see them in every season. Like I want to see you in summer, I want to see you in fall, I want to see you in spring, I want to see you in winter. It's just like a metaphorical thought process that I have because, for example, like if I'm dating someone, I'm not just gonna go to the movies with them. I'm not gonna be like, oh, let's have fun and see how you are when you watch a movie, or let's have fun when we see how you are at a expensive restaurant. You know what I mean? Like you really have to get to know people in spaces that maybe sometimes, like for example, you know how people always say like, oh, if you're dating, the perfect way to see how someone is go on a road trip with them, because once you're in that car for 4 or 5 hours, it's madness. Once you stop at the gas
Listen,
station,
I said that last week. Go on a trip with somebody or try to do an activity. Try to put something together that requires you to follow some directions and collaborate.
Mm-hmm.
Puzzles, bookshelves, desks, things like that. It puts you under a lot of pressure because it takes a lot of skills at the same time. How well you work with a partner, how well you communicate, how well you follow and give directions, how you take criticism, how you take feedback, under space, under time, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely, in relation to the book really quickly, I definitely think that Amy did compromise a lot, but I don't think it excuses the way that she behaved, because she compromised because she wanted to be that ideal woman. You know what I mean? So she felt like she was gaining something from it, which I'm iffy on that. But really quick, because this dating discussion is juicy, but I just have to say, yeah, I knew Aaron would mention some shelves, but I just wanted to say that, like, I definitely think building things, especially, and like anything that's like, oh, we're putting things together, we have to work together, we have to discuss, really shows you what type of person someone is, because how do people behave in stressful situations that they want to get. And I get very stressed out very easily. Aaron knows that. I literally be like, bah! So like I cannot be with
I'm like,
literally. I'm like, so I know already that if I'm doing something with someone and they're also like that, this isn't gonna work. We have to be friends. So I definitely think that like Amy and Nick did not do any sort of, you know what I mean? They were just
but
like,
also,
let's just be
their
perfect.
same instance with her family when they were just like, we burned through millions of dollars. Can we borrow 90% of your trust fund to help us afloat? But we need it tomorrow. That's how bad it is. We need it tomorrow. We made a PPT to convince you to help us. So like even the compromising thing, that scene showed me that there was more of how Amy interacted otherwise. Because she didn't even want to have a conversation like, okay, what are you guys going to do with the money? Because it clearly this is the last of the money that we as a family have. What are you going to do now that's going to be different, and how you ran through all of this money? There was no conversation. She didn't even have a conversation with her husband, who like, yes, it's your trust fund, but we're married now. And so this impacts us both, especially, they end up losing their jobs right after. So it's like, yeah, maybe we should have a conversation just a minute about giving away $650,000 to people who just ran through hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of dollars on their own. Like maybe we should talk about that.
Yeah, I think it's funny that Amy is the type that avoids conflict, but at the same time wants to destroy people. You know what I mean? Like instead of discussing, for example, with that guy that went and dated someone else, instead of being like, hey, I thought we were exclusive, like what's going on? She was like, I'm gonna destroy him. And then she's like, that's why you don't behave that way. You know what I mean? So I think
it's not after the fact.
Yep. And I also agree with this comment and think it's interesting that Nick was literally like, at the beginning, he was like, I've only dated ugly girls. But now here's a pretty girl. Yep. It's so interesting. Okay. Next question. Since we've talked about dating, and that was really juicy. So thank you to everyone who like mentioned something. And all the people that were like, yeah, I'm too old now to be faking. Yeah, definitely agree. I feel like it's funny that Amy was like, oh, I'm perfect. And then right when she started showing her true colors, Nick was like, I've got to bounce. He's like, I gotta go.
So weird.
Yeah.
We used to laugh about women like me, but now I'm about to be 40, and I'm one of those women that we talk about. I'm like, child, you are not like other girls, but not for the reason that you think, but because you're insane.
It's like her not like other girls narrative was because she thought she was the cool girl, and it wasn't that. So interesting. So I'm assuming that everybody thought that they, meaning Nick and Amy, were not a great couple together. But did anyone else? I don't know if everyone's watched You. Have you watched You, the TV show?
It's not a series that I want to watch, but I wanted to read the book first, and I haven't gotten around to it. But I've heard a lot about Mr. Joe Goldberg. I think it's his name.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if anyone in the comment has watched You, so I'll mention this really quickly since Aaron hasn't. But did anybody else get Joe and Love vibes from Amy and Nick? Let me know if anybody's watched season 2 and tell me if you got that vibe. But I'm gonna move on. Okay, so what did you think about the cool girl monologue? Because I know Kay commented in here and they were like, it was horrible.
I was like, what? I was just like, what is this? What is this, Amy? Amy, do you want us to be friends? Like, do you want me to like you? If you're gonna do this thing, why don't you just do it and commit to being like an impersonation of yourself for like eternity? Why must we now get to know the real you if the old you is going so well?
Yeah. The cool girl, so I had seen the cool girl monologue in clips before because anybody who like watches my channel knows that one of my least favorite tropes is the not like other girls trope. So anytime I was dragging that trope, I would
Oh, so that's shocking.
Okay. I don't love V.E. Schwab. I enjoy 2 books from V.E. Schwab, and they are the ones that people tend to not like. So maybe I'm not like other girls. That's why I hate them so much. I'm just kidding. Not me self-hating. Anyways, I'm glad people see what I mean by Love and Amy being exactly the same person. Aaron, you need to watch that show. It's so good. But when you watch it and you get to season 2, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about because that's what those two are like, literally Nick and Amy. It's so funny. Did you suspect Nick from the beginning? Like, did you think he was the person who did everything? Did you know that it wasn't going to be that way? What do you think?
There were some moments where I was like, honestly, Nick is too dumb. I literally said to myself, Nick is too dumb to have pulled this off. And then, but then there were some moments where I don't know if he was like fantasizing about killing her, but he was like something flashed in front of my eyes, and I saw her on the floor, her head bashed in. And I was like, what did he do?
Yeah.
I was like,
those
is
are
this
the
a long?
parts that kept making me think he did it because at first I was like, this is just a way to distract us. But then he kept being like, and I saw my wife, and he kept talking about her head. I was like, please let it go. We know that her head is shaped like a piece of corn or whatever it was that he kept going.
It was very weird. I was like, what is happening?
I was like, okay, I've never read a book with somebody with a head shape obsession, but we love that for you, I guess.
Vibes.
Okay, why is that true? Wait, Aaron, not that being true. He literally would be like,
Gothic. Okay, Doyle.
What if he's a long lost cousin that escaped?
He might be. He might be a descendant. We know they're white. They're not Mexican.
I'm screaming. No, now I'm thinking about Francis. Dude, that book was so wild. Okay, this was a little much.
I don't know if you listen to audio, but there were little monologues where it was like little short cursing, like short little cursing sentences, just like B, P, T, everything is back to back. It was like really angry sounding, and I was like, "Is that necessary?" It was so aggressive.
It was a lot, and I feel like Nick's hatred of women is definitely from the way his dad treated his mom and the way his dad talks about women. Like, it's definitely because you remember how he was like, men don't cry and women blah 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 blah, and anytime his sister would cry, they would both be like
the little things with the dad made me so uncomfortable. It just felt so violent and just so like. And it was like the narrator got like so aggressive. I was like, I don't like this. I'm uncomfortable.
It was just a lot. And okay, this is one thing that I really felt like was unnecessary, like we didn't need to see that, was the mention of Nick being like, everybody thinks me and my sister are sleeping together. I was like, no, but we didn't need that. We didn't need that. I'm like, Gillian, that could have stayed in the draft. The editor could have just like slid that one out. We didn't need that.
And the way,
Like,
the way the wife was jealous of the relationship he had with his sister, I was like, what? Also, the biggest mystery in the book for me was what was Go's real name. I said, what kind of name gives you the nickname Go?
I think her name's Margot.
Yeah, when I said Margot, I was like, wow. I've been thinking about that the whole book.
You're like, let's go.
Go? Was it like
what other name would be Go?
UX?
Dude, no, but the mention of the two of them sleeping together, I was like, we please, no. Like, and it's bad because the whole time I was reading the book, I kept like wondering if something was going to happen, and I was like, please don't let this happen because I don't want to have to DNF this book.
That would have been a good if Go had actually killed the wife, because
that would have been a twist, yeah.
That would have been interesting.
That would have given it a little bit of flavor, but not with the whole like we're sleeping together storyline. I think it would have been interesting if, you know how Nick borrowed money from Amy for the bar. It would have been interesting if Margot had been the one to do all of that to Amy because of the bar. You know what I mean? If there was like some type of
Margot set Nick up, Nick and Amy up. Like
that would be juicier.
She's the one who did it to the Amy, and then she pretended to set up because I mean the stuff was stored at her house. She also knows all the same information about Nick. Mm-hmm. She also has access to the dad. She didn't know about the fair stuff, but she could have easily found out about the fair because they were doing it in her backyard. So like that would have been interesting. Like we're supposed to be so close, but you keeping secrets from me, and like that would have been interesting.
Yeah. I think it would have been just so juicy if it was Margot, because she literally, all the information that Amy had, she could have had that because her and her brother like talk about everything pretty much. So I feel like that would have been a really interesting twist. I saw one of the book club questions in the book imply that she was kind of a metaphor for multiple sides of Nick. I don't think I saw that in the book. Did you?
That girl was a metaphor for multiple sides in Nick?
Yeah.
I enjoy seeing the deterioration of their relationship when she started to distrust him and started to question him. He started getting upset by it, and he started like, we will never be the same because you actually thought I'm a murderer and that I, was this thing. And like just watching the tension between them two was interesting. I like that.
I like that she started hating him. She's like, I can't stand you. Especially when she went and got questioned.
Like, we'll never be the same because you thought I was a murderer. Which, I mean, it's fair. It's fair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's fair, I guess. But also, Margot, I hope she's free.
But imagine one of your siblings thought you killed somebody.
Like I would be very salty.
And you definitely hadn't done it. It was like, whoa. No, there were no POC. Except Desi. No. I think Desi was a person of color.
Oh, where's that question?
I think he was.
Desi was a person of color.
Maybe that was my interpretation.
Definitely described him as a white man.
For real?
I think so. I thought he was white. Who was Betsy again?
The fact that nobody really knows the top of their head tells you she was somebody very minor. But no, it was very white.
Yeah, the book definitely. I agree. If Nick was not white, it wouldn't have even mattered that Amy showed up. If Amy wasn't
white, it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah. It would have been completely different. Oh, yes. Betsy was. I think Betsy was black. Yeah.
Betsy was Walt's wife. Tanner's wife.
Now. Yeah. You know what? I don't want to say I'm kind of glad. This is not a book where I want a black person to be any sort of main character, especially by a white author. I feel like
this white man.
Yep. Imagine Amy doing what she did to a black man.
Imagine the scene where Nick is in New York. First of all, he's able to get on planes and travel in the middle of a murder investigation and nobody said nothing. Imagine the scene when he's in New York and the dude asked him if he did it. What if he had been like, yeah.
I just feel like sometimes, okay, the thing is, I love diverse books. I love books that have people of color, Black people, people of different ethnicities, religion, whatever. But this book, let's leave it for the white folks.
A Black book would not have been like that.
Let's leave it for the white people.
Passion.
I'm like,
blood everywhere.
Because I do not want a Black man or a man of color going through what Amy did to Nick. That he would not even be alive. Like, exactly. It's a good thing Miss Gillian stayed in her lane and left the people of color alone. Like, y'all keep it.
Because
we don't need to be in the
Black. No, sorry. There wouldn't have been any benefit of the doubt. There wouldn't have been any going on trails and taking pictures with weird women.
Exactly. And do you think he would have literally been able to get that attorney? He wouldn't have been able to get that super famous attorney in the first place. The affair with Andy, that like soft-spoken 23-year-old white girl, you think if it was a Black man or a man of color who had some girl like on a podium speaking about an affair, you think things would have gone the same? Absolutely not.
First of all, also, not. It was so weird that they were so cash strapped and this and that. The way they talked about money, the money discussion was really weird. When she talked about, she said she paid $10 for a gallon, and she didn't even realize she was being gypped. I was like, he was like,
I never been to the store.
Her house for $100,000 for this attorney. I'm like, you have access to $100,000, but you just like, oh, I'm so stressed about money.
I can't believe I have. And you live in Missouri. It's not like you live in California. You live in Missouri. How expensive can it possibly be?
Well, who gonna pay those credit card bills? I really want to know.
Literally. Okay, so the cops were POC. Okay. This book, not this being true. No, literally.
When she's shocked.
I'm like, the sound effect. Okay.
The exact moment when Rose on set looking for the keys, you know why I can't find the keys. That would have been exactly what happened.
Literally. Like, did you feel like you were genuinely surprised by any, like, what moments surprised you the most? Or what twists, things, anything surprised you the most?
I don't think I was ever
somebody play the cricket.
Surprised.
You know what? I feel like for me, and also everybody in the comment, let us know also what moment surprised you. Let us know. But for me, it definitely, I guess Erin didn't really feel surprised by anything. But the only thing that really surprised me was maybe the fact that Amy, like, I knew Amy was going to have to kill Desi based on the fact that, like, he now knows that she's alive, you know what I mean? And now, like, she's basically at his house. I knew she was going to kill him, but I didn't know that she'd be able to explain that away in a way where, like, all the questions they asked her, yeah, like, all the questions, not Gusney B. Marco, but, like, all the questions that they asked her, and it was just like, oh, she was like, why are you asking me all these questions? Why are you asking me all these questions? Why are you asking me all these questions? And then the cops were like, oh, sorry.
Girl, because you've been missing for 3 months. That's why we asking questions.
And it's like, I get the idea, like, you don't want to scar a victim, all of this, like, that's super important. But I feel like it was just kind of like breezed away and not talked about. So that surprised me. I guess the lack of
like, he had murdered someone, like someone else had died in that process. So yeah, we have questions.
Yeah, it also did surprise me that they stayed together, but not really, because I got Joe and Love vibes. I felt like they were gonna end up staying together. This is not a spoiler for you. This is not a spoiler because we don't know what happens. But yeah, it didn't really surprise me too much. Okay, well, I guess this wasn't a shocking thriller, but I know that everybody was talking about whether or not they would recommend this book to readers. And I did slightly talk about it earlier, but would you? It's the no.
I would recommend. I was like, if you want to read Gone Girl because of what you think's gonna happen or the vibes, read Silent Patient.
Yeah.
Because
I
also,
think I would
Gone Girl was unnecessarily long.
Yeah, it's like 500 and something pages, right? Let me see. I have the book right here. I'm gonna check right now.
The audiobook was 20 hours.
Like 400.
And like I'm used to books like this have like 700 pages and like 25-hour audiobooks. The fact that the audiobook was 20 hours long, I was so shocked. And I feel like a lot of it could have been condensed and it might have had more of a punch if it wasn't as slow. Because I mean the first 50% when it was just journal entries and Nick being lost in the sauce, that could have gone a lot quicker. You could have took out at least 100 pages right there.
Yeah, I agree that the audiobook was really slow. So when I opened this to check the page count really quick, I saw something that irritated me. So I'm just going to read it because this would literally not happen if Amy wasn't white. And it literally says, "No one has arrested me. The police have stopped questioning. I feel safe." I'm like, after everything you did, you feel safe?
Wow. I had the audiobook on 3 times speed and I was still slow. I was like, can we? I wish I could put on it to 4. Because honestly, the narrative spoke so slowly.
The narrator was like, Amy, Elliot, done. I was like, we can speed this up. Why is it 20 hours? Like the only book I've read that was 20 hours.
My life as a normal girl, but I would always think about Amy. But when you with Amy, you can't even sleep straight because she got poison vomit in the freezer just waiting on you to slip up.
Literally. I feel like I'd be so terrified. I'd be so terrified being married to someone like
the pregnancy shocked me the second time. I was like, what? When she was talking about her insurance plan, and I was like, oh, what is it? What is it? And then it was that. I was like,
yeah.
She was
not playing around. She wanted to trap him, and she wasn't, because she knows Nick, and she knows that he would not ever want people to think he was a bad person. And what's the worst thing that people could think about him? That after cheating on his wife, he then left her because she was pregnant. Like, he's the kind of guy who is so, his pride, she knows him too.
If he had killed her, he would have got away with it the second time. Because no one would have thought that we went through this whole murder investigation where his wife was missing and he was the main suspect in prison and he didn't do it and then he would go and do it again. No one would believe that. It's just too unbelievable.
Oh my God, this part was despicable. Like, absolutely uncalled for. Miss Amy is just cruel.
Evil. I feel bad for that kid.
And watch it not even be a boy. Watch it not even be a boy. Watch it be a girl. Literally watch it be a girl. Not a hope. That would be so sad.
I mean, Amy's 40.
That's true.
And she was
it is harder to have kids when you're 40 and older, right? Isn't that something we usually talk about? I know it's not impossible.
Herself.
Yeah, it's funny though. My aunt, I think she had literally I think she had 2 sets of twins, like very close after each other, like in her mid-40s. And everybody was like, like, we were all like, not.
It's wild.
It's just wild. It's wild. Okay, so we're going to be rounding up in a little bit, but I do want to ask everyone in the comments, and also Erin again, what do you typically like in your thrillers? What do you typically enjoy? What do you look for? While you're thinking, I'm going to say mine, and while everyone in the comment is kind of commenting, I really love when thrillers are entertaining and when there's like juicy twists. Like, even if the characters are horrible. Huh?
And I want to be shocked. I want to be entertained.
You want to be what? Oop, my book is being Lala.
I don't want to see this coming at all.
Yeah.
That's why I love Only Daughter so much. You couldn't have paid me money to find that twist.
What? Dude, I'm starting to read that today. Like, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. And I do want, it's funny, like I want to do another thriller for the book club because I think thrillers are really interesting to talk about. So that might just be one of them. Who knows? Maybe I won't read it and then I'll make it a book pick.
It's so good because it's so slow and things are happening. Like when I get to a thriller, I want to get to the end and see all the crumbs.
Mm-hmm.
Like see all the things like, whoa, I didn't put those things together. And now it all makes sense. But like without this linchpin, because I don't want it to be like the twist is unrelated and it doesn't make sense to anything else that happened because that feels like cheap.
Yeah.
But and I'm like, whoa, I can see all the things that you did to get to that. Chef's kiss.
Yeah. Okay, so a lot of people are like loving all the different satisfying stuff. A lot of people are saying they love the suspense, huge twist, and even someone's like, yes, another thriller. So maybe we should do Only Daughter as another thriller pick. Because I feel like I trust your reading recommendations. So we might just have to do that and have Erin back again. Literally. I love that too. I also like being able to try and predict what's going on. So if there's nothing to go on.
Unreliable narrators are so fun to follow.
Yeah, I agree. Because you just don't know what they're going to do. And you don't know if you can trust them at all.
And you know that they're unreliable until you know they're unreliable. And up until that point, you trusted everything that they said. And you're like, what was true and what was a lie?
Yeah. You're like, what was real? Oh my gosh. Literally, if you take anything away from this, people, go and read The Silent Patient because it's so good. Like, yes. You cannot trust anybody in that book at all. At all. You just can't.
And The Silent Patient is the one thing I really like. The audiobook is really good. I highly recommend it. It does this thing where it talks directly to you, the reader. And in the thriller setting, it's always very interesting. It's like, oh, you thought this. No, not at all.
Like, oh, you thought, but you were wrong.
You are not lying.
All right. Anybody have any final thoughts that you'd like to share? Anything else you would like to say? And also you too, Erin. Do you have anything else you want to share with the audience? Anything that you have exciting coming up that you want to plug and let the audience know?
Audience, I myself have a book club. We read fantasy and sci-fi mostly. So in January, I'm trying to see, do I have it like easily accessible to me? In January, my book club, we're going to be reading The Year of the Witching. In February, we're going to be reading Black Sun. In March, we're going to be reading The Fate of the Fallen. So we have a group book for every month, and then we have an optional buddy read as well if you want to follow up with that. So it's always a good time. We have a Discord, so it's a good time. You'll see Miss Chanel back over in the Busy Bee Book Club again in 2021. So.
Yeah, you guys are going to be seeing too much of Erin next year. I'm just telling you now.
I can't wait for spoiler alert, y'all. Spoiler alert is just chef's kiss. It's so good.
Yes, Erin is for sure going to be joining us for the March read for spoiler alert. She's the one who recommended this book, and I'm just so excited.
It's so good.
Yes. It looks like there are no last comments in here, but make sure you guys check out Erin's channel, which is linked down below. And then on her channel, she has all her social media links. You definitely should check out her channel if you love fantasy, because my brain cells, as we know, can't carry fantasy, but I try anyways. But yes, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And thank you so much, Erin, for this lively discussion.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm a reader again. I've read 2 books this week. Love that.
Love that for you. That's more than me. But I will see everybody in our next live show for the book club, which will be again in January for These Violent Delights. And that's it. Thank you again. Goodbye, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Is it ending? It's still ending.